And there's a pretty obvious, like, so first of all, not really a win for democracy, but also just not a win for humanity. And the kind of obvious lesson here is that when you topple a regime, it is not at all a guarantee that what's going to come after it will be better. Like there's lots of other factors involved here. And it's almost as if none of the cheerleaders of this war are even considering the possibility that, like, if Putin were to fall, something much worse could come. It's like they have this like kind of cartoon, version of the world in their head where it's like, Putin is bad guy gone. That means good. But the world is actually much more complicated than that. And who's to say, even for any of the things that you don't like about Vladimir Putin, that we don't like about Vladimir Putin, who's to say that what replaces him is not worse? And in fact, I think a strong argument could be made that it's likely that what would replace him would be worse. It's not a given that there wouldn't be someone more hawkish or someone more extreme than Vladimir Putin would rise up if he were to fall. And especially when you have, there's a large degree, there's a lot that indicates that Vladimir Putin is very popular in Russia. No, I don't know exactly how much this war has affected that. Wars do tend to be unpopular, especially the longer they go and the bloodier they are. But what would be able to say, kind of like, if you have factions within Russia who love Vladimir Putin and factions who hate Vladimir Putin, what would be more likely to pull that all together? Like a peaceful dove or an authoritarian strongman? Well, history would tell us that an authoritarian strongman is more likely to come out of that. And, when you're dealing with a country that has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the history of the world, to just be like celebrating that we're rolling the dice on this is insane to me. I mean, look, Vladimir Putin is at least the devil we know. You know what I mean? Like, the world's been dealing with Vladimir Putin since Bill Clinton was in office. Or was it Clinton? Maybe it was after. It was after Clinton, but whatever. It's been a long time. It's been 20 years or so of dealing with Vladimir Putin. Yes, he's had military operations in Georgia, in Syria, and of course this war in Ukraine. It's not great. I would argue they were all responses to Western aggression. But it's like, don't think it couldn't be worse, And like, whatever people can caricature this as, I'm sure there will be idiots who caricature this as, this is pro-Putin talking points. But it's like, no, to say you shouldn't topple the German monarchy is not a pro-monarchy talking point. It's just like, look, Adolf Hitler rose up next. That was worse. If you think it can't get any worse than this, you're incredibly naive, and you're rolling the dice with the biggest nuclear power in the world. So to me, you can accuse me of confirmation bias here, but it's just kind of like more evidence that we never should have gotten involved in this to begin with. It's an incredibly dangerous situation that so many people seem to be watching like, oh, yay, the bad guy might get it. Like, yes, we're on the good team and he's on the bad team. And you're like, yo, guys, there's a lot on the line here. It's a very dicey situation. And this came on the heels of Putin making some nuclear rearrangements and moving nukes around and stuff. It's like this, ugh. And the other thing about this here is that, like, to me, it's really like only simpletons who don't, with any seriousness, consider the weight of how dangerous this situation is, like, root for Putin to be overthrown. Like, they're just like, yeah, that's the best case scenario, Like, this is what Lindsey Graham or Joe Biden or any of them have said many times. Like, that's the best case scenario. Putin gets overthrown. And it's like, okay, even if that were true, right? Even if you eliminate my grave concern that like something worse could rise up after him, how about the concern about what that process looks like and what Vladimir Putin might do? Like, all the concern from the establishment has always been that Putin could win the war. And then if Putin wins the war, whatever they say, he goes to take Poland, whatever the ridiculous domino theory of the day is. If he wins the war in Ukraine, then he owns England all of a sudden or something like that. After he struggles through this war, he's just going to conquer all of the NATO countries, some ridiculous fantasy. But it's like, okay, but what about if he loses the war? What if he loses a war on his border and is humiliated in front of the world, and then his people are turning against him, and then there's a threat that he could be overthrown by his own people? What does he do then? Feels like there should be some more consideration given to that scenario, because that actually seems to me to have much more of a potential downside than him winning. And that doesn't mean that I think it's the moral answer is that he wins the war. Just in terms of where there's more potential danger to the world, the worst case scenario to me seems to be Vladimir Putin thinks he's getting killed anyway. That seems to be a real bad scenario.